Hey, I'm Candia Raquel, and you are at the Sensual Sessions Podcast, the place to explore sensing pleasure through your senses and moving in a way that is free from inhibition and full of self expression. If you haven't already, please subscribe to get these episodes delivered on your inbox weekly. Just go to my website, which is my name, candiaraquel.com, www.candiaraquel.com, and you'll get them almost every Tuesday. And today we have a very special guest. She is Stephanie Tack. She's coming back for another episode where she will share with us about a very primal and even feral sense that is the sense of smell. Very happy to have you here again, Stephanie. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be back, and I love working with the senses. And so I'm super excited to get into this discussion today because we always have such interesting discussions between the two of us.
Yes, 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 yes. So tell us, when did you first discover your sense of smell? Like, when did you realize it was something like, oh, wow, smelling, there's something to it?
I recently, within the past year, started doing these smell workshops. They're
Oh,
tantric workshops to work with couples, to bring couples closer together. And my partner, Max, and I are doing these together. And so we have been like exploring the sense of smell. And we've been asking ourselves these types of questions like, what does smell do in a coupleship? And how can we use it for our pleasure? And how do we activate the sense, in the tantric world, but also just to bring people closer together or to create bonds? And so it's been really interesting doing these workshops because it's made me reflect on smell, because I think it's generally something we kind of almost take for granted, as we do maybe probably all the senses. But from, what I know about the sense of smell is it's actually the first thing that fully develops while you're in the womb. So it's the only sense that's 100% fully developed while you're already in the womb. And it actually maintains being your predominant sense until you're 10 years old. And then when you're 10 years old, it shifts to sight. If you're a seeing person, then all of a sudden the sense of sight when you're 10 years old or so develops to the point where that starts to take over as your dominant sense. But until then, smelling is your dominant sense. And so they say that everything that you smell in your childhood before you're 10 years old kind of creates most of your likes and dislikes with what you're going to enjoy smelling and dislike smelling for the rest of your life. And that's one of the reasons why it's so closely linked to smell memory, as everybody knows.
smell memory. Yeah, it immediately takes you to a moment, to a place, to a person. Like, for example, uh, smelling the scarf of my grandmother reminds me of her. And it makes a lot of sense that it's our first fully developed sense because it's pretty much linked with an immediate survival. Like you you can smell something is wrong, like gas in your house. You smell and it's like immediate, like you don't care if you have a meeting or you are in a hurry or whatever, you're not gonna go into a place that smells like gas because you know it's dangerous. Or someone brings you like a lovely meal that looks very delicious, but the smell it's gonna override everything else. Like no matter how beautiful it looks, or I don't know, if it smells bad, or a person. That's horrible. I had a I had a first date with
Oh no.
a guy that met on Bumble, and his mouth stinked, and it was like, how how can you tell to someone in a polite way that he has bad breath? That's impossible. So I but I have a secret promise with my friends that they are obliged to tell me if my mouth stinks, if it so happens. Yeah, yeah, it's like an attractor, and maybe even more, it's a repellent. Like if you are repulsed by the smell of someone you met on a first day, there's no future for that romance.
Exactly. Exactly. So there's so much in what you just said. There's so much. I'm going to unpack it a little bit. Well, the first thing that came to my mind was this saying that we say, it doesn't smell right.
It
Because
doesn't.
we say that when something feels off, we say this situation, something doesn't smell right. It's just, it reeks of, this or that. It's the smell is off. And actually, all the senses, part of their function is to sense what's in the external world and to then communicate to the internal world and see, like, do we want to take this thing from the external world in, or is this thing dangerous, right? So the senses work as a way that we're seeing if there's danger in our immediate environment. So like you said, smelling gas, smelling noxious fumes, smelling something that we know is poison, it's going to give us information so that we can get away from that, right? And then likewise, the smelling of, something that you really like if you can even just think of fresh baked bread, or if you can think of pizza in an oven, or coffee brewing. Some of our favorite things that when we smell them, it's you can notice you start to salivate,
Yeah,
right? Because
yeah, yeah, coffee brand.
yes, you start to salivate because this is connected. There's actually two kind of like nasal cavities. You have like your nasal cavity where you breathe in through your nose, right? And then when you breathe in through your mouth and plug your nose, the air is still going in, but they share an air passage in the back. And so that paranasal passage that's in the back, where when you eat something, it's actually the flavor of the thing you're eating is mostly coming from the smell, because the smell goes back into that passageway and it reaches into the olfactory bulb, just like how it would be if you're smelling it, right? It's still going up into the olfactory bulb, which is, by the way, one of the most primitive parts of your brain, connected to the limbic system and to the amygdala. And so if you plugged your nose while you're eating pizza, you would just maybe taste salt, and you would sense the texture of what you're eating, but it would no longer taste like cheese, tomato, bread. You wouldn't be able to distinguish all of those, because smell has so many more parts that you can distinguish, like 20,000 different parts that you can distinguish, whereas taste, it just doesn't have as many parts that you can distinguish because it's like a less sophisticated function. And so yes, so the sense of smell, the sense of taste, they're all combined together. And some people say that we used to, like, kissing came from going in to smell somebody's breath, going in to sniff around the mouth, and that's how it became kissing, because we're trying to determine, like, is this a possible mate for us? Which brings us to the fact that smell, when it comes between humans, has a lot to do with pheromones. Whether we're attracted to somebody or not, it's coming through this level of, like, do I like the way they smell? Can I smell their pheromones? And men produce one pheromone and women produce a different pheromone. And women's pheromones are dictated by their cycles. So their pheromones are like highest when they're ovulating, to give the signal that, it's time to procreate. And women are also most sensitive to men's pheromones during the time of ovulation to really see, is this the person I should be mating with, you know?
Yeah, super interesting, which reminded me of the major factor of histocompatibility that is like a immunological, very important compound that tells your body that, for example, mm, your tongue, it has the same DNA than your palate, so it's not an external body, so your immune system, it's not gonna hit against your tongue or whatever. It's like, okay, we are all part of this body. Hello, cell, hello, cell. And it's a fact, it's studied that women can identify how different is the histocompatibility complex in a man, and their preference of mate is pretty much mm, influenced by how different is the immune system of of the guy, meaning that the more different it is, in case of procreation, the baby is gonna have a stronger immune system. In contrast with what happened in the monarchy for years and years, that there was so much inbreeding between cousins and brothers and all that stuff, that the blood in a way became like thin, and they died from a simple cut. They bleed it out because they had a very weak immune system. So it's very interesting that, and the men, they don't have that ability in that extent. So it's very interesting that my grandmother used to say to me that you're the one that is gonna choose your man. And I have even asked some friends, like, did you choose your wife or your wife choose you? And all of them said, like, no, I was chosen. She picked me. And yeah, it's very interesting. All of that comes through the sense of smell.
Yeah, and I think men generally, just because of the way their bodies are biologically designed, they've got like, trillions of sperm, and women have a certain amount of eggs. And then when women have the children, they need to protect the children, and, just have one, and then maybe like a year and a half or 2 years later have like another one. So whereas men, they're kind of more just designed to, like, they can have so many different babies and different situations. So I think women are naturally more selective to who they're going to pick. And this sense of pheromone secretion is a chemical process that's going on that's signaling some sort of compatibility on a biological level of, like, do you smell right to me? Do I like the way you smell? And it's all happening on a subconscious level. When we're taking in the smell of other people, we don't even a lot of times know that we're doing it. And it's hard to 100% do it because nowadays everybody's wearing deodorant and perfume, and sometimes the perfume has pheromones in it, and people are using scented creams and shampoos and lotions, so it's hard to just get someone's like natural scent. But at certain times of the month, I think as women, we know that our smells change. You can smell your sweat at different times of your cycle, and it kind of smells different. It's the same thing, like if you're stressed, you get like that stress sweat smell. It's like a different kind of smell. So these kind of chemical components in the secretions of the body are, signaling to us, like, is this a good mate for us? Should we procreate with this person? And that's just purely biological, and like you said earlier, repulsion is part of that too. It's repulsion to smell something that smells bad so that you don't eat it. it's poisonous, or it's protecting you. Don't take it in. And just like that with a mate that's not the right biological mix for you, you'll be repulsed by the smell because it's not for you.
Yeah, so from now on, no deodorant, no perfume on first days. That would be an interesting policy. I don't know how would a guy that I met on a dating app would react to that. I may make the experiment like, can you just shower yourself and don't wear any lotion or deodorant because I want to see if I like your smell. Would that be offensive in
So
our
here's
modern
what
day?
I learned. Yeah, so this is what I learned doing that workshop that I was telling you about with the tantric workshop, where we would do something called like scenting your partner. So we were using like essential oils. So you take essential oils and you can mix them up and get creative, but you kind of like put them in a trail across your body, and then you let your partner sniff you like an animal, and he tries to find, or she tries to find, or they try to find the trail along your body. And what I learned doing it is that it's completely taboo to sniff somebody. It's completely creepy. Like, if someone just leans in and starts sniffing you, it's very creepy. It's like, it's very animalistic. Yet we all do it when we're kind of hugging each other. You hug somebody and you kind of get a whiff of their cologne or their shampoo or their neck or something. And even just babies have the baby smell, and you take comfort in, hopefully you take comfort in the way that people smell, or you're repulsed by it. That could be the other reaction too, which I think we've all had. But I think that what I learned is that, yeah, it's pretty creepy when someone is like directly smelling you. So if you're giving somebody permission to sniff you and find the trail, you do go into that more primitive part of the brain, which totally makes sense, right? That it's a primitive part of your brain because it's like the animalistic part of you. And when you're sniffing, you do kind of feel like a dog or an animal or something sniffing along somebody. But after a while, you get to this point where you're sniffing along their skin, and it starts getting like more and more refined, and you're picking up more and more scents. And then you start to think, yeah, like this is how dogs do it. Those bloodhounds, they're picking up the trail on the ground, sniffing every little tiny thing, and they're finding missing persons and lost objects, and it's amazing what they can do. But when you're smelling along somebody's body, you start to get these like very refined senses of all these different elements, like I was saying before, like 20,000 different parts can all be together to create kind of like one general smell, or different parts that you can sense as somebody's scent. And it's number one, to receive it. If you allow it to happen, it's very calming and relaxing just to let somebody kind of sniff across you. And of course, if they're getting to like sensitive or private parts of the body, if they're, not your partner, or maybe even if they are your partner, you might have some things come up for you around shame, around embarrassment, pleasure. A lot of stuff could come up. But in the most part, I think if they're sniffing on your arm, sniffing on your neck, it is very calming and relaxing. And when you're doing it, it is very calming and relaxing, and it puts you into a different type of state where you're kind of just more in your subconscious mind, picking up images, having memories. I read something interesting that when people smell, they smell in color. And they did a test to test people's, what colors do you see when you smell this smell? And they were giving them citrus smells, and they were seeing orange, yellow, green, which are the citrus colors. Then they would let them smell grass without telling them it's grass, just smell the grass. They would say green and brown and so on. So they were really identifying smells with certain colors. And so in this way, with the memories and the colors, it's really activating like a subconscious part of your brain that's really beyond like your logical thinking, which is super fun as well.
Yes. So it can get really creepy to just smell at your, I don't know, your guy on the first date. But it's an intimate act. And you gave us a very good hint. During a hug, you definitely smell someone. And it's definitely animalistic because it requires no refinement nor preconceptions nor training. It's immediate, like a repulsive smell and an attractive fragrance. And yeah, we used to say that it's love at first sight, but perhaps it's actually pretty much love at first smell, because that's gonna really determine the fleshly aspect of the possibility of love with that person. Because someone may look fantastic on the pictures of the Oscars, but you don't know how that actor or that actress smells. Which leads me to an interview with Anthony Hopkins, and he was asked on how he, like, what was the basis of his character, because his performance is like,
Oh,
even
like in Silence of the
in
Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs,
Yeah.
because his character of Hannibal Lecter is not not a Jack Nicholson crazy motherfucker, or not even creepy. The guy was like, Hannibal Lecter was like educated and
Yeah.
elegant,
Intellectual. Yeah.
intellectual, and he was really creepy. And the interviewer was like, I cannot pinpoint what were you doing there, like what's at the core of the technique when creating the character. And Anthony Hopkins said that he didn't look at at the other characters, at Judy Foster. He smelled her.
Yeah, that's true.
And then it pops into my mind the image of Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter in the screen, and he has a relaxed glance, of the peripheral glance, of not looking straight into the eyes, or not being focused at anything, but actually being focused on on the sense of smell. That is the same kind of glance of predators and even animals. Like, you can see when a dog looks into your eyes, and most of the times they are looking through you, especially cats. They are very pompous and arrogant, but they have this kind of aromatic relating, of communicating through others. And yeah, definitely that's huge part of the magic in his terrifying character. That I saw the movie perhaps 25 years ago, The Silent of the Lambs, and I still get what you said. It can get really creepy to smell someone, or to be smelled like out of nowhere somewhere.
Yeah. I love this example of Hannibal Lecter because everybody knows Hannibal Lecter, right? And it's such a, like you said, stunning performance. And I'm just thinking of this moment, and he's like listening to classical music or something, and he's got his eyes closed and he's kind of sniffing at the air. And it's almost as if he's absorbing and taking it in and he's feeding off of it. It's like he's sucking your soul and your energy by like taking it in without your permission, it's like a violation, you know? And it's not like that offensive guy that's in the prison with him where he's, you know, pleasuring himself and then he throws his stuff onto Jodie Foster. It's not like aggressive like that. It's more like I'm taking you in and I'm like kind of robbing you and stealing from you and absorbing your scent. And in that way, it's like you feel, yeah, it feels like you're about to become this guy's like dinner or something, you know, which that is his thing. It's the animalistic juxtaposition with his intellectual abilities that makes his character kind of fascinating, right? Because he's a cannibal, like Hannibal the cannibal. He wants to eat people.
Yeah,
He
like,
wants to take them in. That's the psychology of it, is to take them in. And maybe that's what we're doing with our partners too, is like we're trying to take them in internally. Um,
yeah, sense of smell is so sexy because of that. So with Hannibal Lecter, yeah, I think the most terrifying aspect of his character for me was the dehumanization of the victim. Like you're not even someone fuckable. Like you're not you anymore. You're a stake. So it's like the objectifying of the self. That is something that I believe we have to be very careful in our culture when we want to explore sensuality and an intimate delight, because we women often do that to ourselves when we want to look like the ladies at the Oscars and we want to get the same Botox treatment and the same makeup and the same high heels and fit into the same tight corset to look like them, which implies not looking like you and not feeling like you and not being like you. So it's like an external turnaround towards pleasure that is actually dehumanizing and especially objectifying of women, that is as violent as what we are talking in regards to this character. Well, in a different scale, because it's not the same, the physical idea of it than the rational of it, but definitely it's a wedge that gets in the way for the intimate experience that means sensuality, especially with a partner. So it's like that animal, actually it's the animalistic knowing of how much you are attracted to someone because of that smell. So it's like that's your smell. You can identify someone because of their smell. You can know who they are. Like I remember the smell of my grandmother. I remember the right now the smell of a couple friends. I can tell the difference of the smell of one dog and the other because they are very close to me. So I know even the smell of places and the smell of things that remind you of childhood. So yeah, I feel that exploring the sense of smell can take the refinement of the delight to another level of nakedness.
Yes, what's coming up for me is like this feeling, and I say this with this experience of having taught these workshops, right? And what's coming up for me in relationship to that is that unlike this plastic surgery or trying to physically look in a way to attract a mate, right? Instead of getting the lips enlarged and having these feminine ideals imposed upon the body, getting the breasts enlarged, to really pump up these things that are attractive and kind of like make them kind of like overly prominent. I think I see a lot of people like this where they're, it's the classic porn star thing where you just get the, like super huge boobs or the lips that have been like overly injected. And it's, they actually did like a study with the sense of aesthetics in the animal kingdom. And they were using like baby birds to figure out like, would the baby birds go to the mother that's like got more of what the attractive thing is? Would the male go more to the female bird if it was like most attractive? So they figured out that these like rings around the beak were what the animals kind of found attractive. So they were painting like extra rings on the beak of the bird. And it was true, like more the babies were more going to that one to be cared for, and the males were more going to that bird to be mated with. And so there is something about the aesthetic ideal and kind of like pushing it to its limit for attracting the partner. But what's coming up for me is that this sense of smell and what it does, and I think it's because it's connected to the limbic system, because the limbic system is like controlling your, not controlling, but it's deeply connected with like your mood, your emotions, with your deep memories and stuff like that. And I think because it's connected to the mood, the emotions, the memories, like I was saying before, it's tapped into the subconscious part of the brain. And I think because it's intertwined with those things, when you're deep in that sense of smell or being smelled, it's putting you into that evocative place of the emotions, that evocative place of the memories, and it's completely like passionate and intoxicating, but it's completely internalizing because you're just going so far into yourself. So rather than looking at the aesthetics and being like, oh yes, like porn star, I like it, I like what I see, it's the totally blown up aesthetics of that thing. It's rather going super inwards into this internal, wow, I don't know what the smell is, but for me, it's like it smells like home, or it smells so wonderful, or it smells amazing, or it's reminding me of this, or reminding me of that, or like it's making me joyous, it's making me feel erotic, it's making me feel like super turned on, whatever the thing is, it's making you go so far deep within. And likewise, it's kind of unlocking like real deep animalistic and primal desires, because you're going into that primal part of your brain where you're like activating more kind of like your animalistic senses. And, I mean, if someone were just to smell my armpit, for instance, I might be a little shy about it,
Yes.
especially if I wasn't wearing deodorant. I might be like, I don't know if I want someone to smell my armpit. But in this kind of context, it can unleash this primal desire of like getting underneath what society says is okay, and into just the sexual desire of like, I want to sniff your crotch, and I want to sniff your neck, and I want to kiss your mouth and sniff your lips and smell your breath and smell your armpit, and like whatever else whatever else you can think of, lots more options. Sniff your hair, like that's this thing that a lot of people do, that, especially because I'm short. So people are always like sniffing my hair when they're hugging me from up above. I can tell they're smelling my hair. And I think, okay, it's socially acceptable. But if someone were to lean in and smell your armpit and you didn't have a relationship or something with them, it would be offensive. So yeah, so it's an interesting thing where it's like bringing you deep into your sense of mood, your sense of memory, your evocative memories, your evocative emotions, your sense of passion, and then it's unlocking these deep animalistic desires just to sniff people and be sniffed and be like brought down to like the level of like a dog sniffing butts, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And talking about dogs sniffing butts, I I was coming out from dance training one day. It was, I think, the second day of my period. So I was super sweaty, and I think now that I had also impregnated the smelly scent of my classmate because we did partner work in the rehearsal for a certain choreography. And I remember two dogs followed me like for 5 blocks to the bus station. And I was super ashamed on the first block. And on the second block, I was actually scared if those dogs were gonna attempt to hump on my leg or attack me or something. But the remaining 3 blocks, I actually felt kind of proud. And I think I am blushing now. I cannot explain it. But it's like an animalistic pride that, okay, I have something primal in me that doesn't have to do with my many certifications, qualifications, politeness, beauty, good manners. There's something fundamental and essential in me, like an essence, a real aromatic essence that compels these two living beings to walk that distance behind me. And that's my smell.
It's the
So
power.
it's the power of smell.
It's
And
the power. And I think for dogs, when you're bleeding, it's not the same as it is for humans, right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think when dogs bleed, it's because that's when they should be mounted, right? Like
yeah,
to get pregnant. Yeah.
yeah, they bleed in heat, not
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, not as we civilized women bleed
But
to
it's the
stay.
pure power. It's the pure
It's
power
the pure power and
of your
essence
person,
because
of your sex, you know, they're intertwined. And like you said, it has nothing to do with your education, your class, your social status, yeah, the color of your skin, the sexual
yeah,
orientation. It has nothing to do with any of that stuff. It's just
no,
like you got the pure power from within to
yeah,
secrete these sexual hormones. I mean, I guess some people are not even sure if human pheromones even exist, but I think no, they do. And yeah, they're powerful. They're powerful things, especially that period scent. Like for sure, that's a powerful thing, and people can smell it, and it can be shameful. Absolutely. But it is powerful.
yeah. And as much as it can be shameful, it can also be like I discovered for me a reason for pride because I think that was one of the moments when I really realized that pleasure is my birthright, like the pleasure to be myself and as I am with my thousand flaws and with my recurrent mistakes. I I feel that I have that right, and I feel that that pleasure gets to another depth when you are lucky to know that you are truly loved by someone because of who you are, especially because of who you are, because of your scars, because of your stinky corners every now and then, and your stinky toes after climbing a mountain, and your smelly period that it's also very attractive and enticing because it's like, I don't know if I like this smell or if I am repulsed by this smell, because there's also that. it's easy to say that you like or you don't like what you see, but in regards to smells, like repulsion is very clear. But from then on, there's an infinite of gradients of interest, at least, that I have been finding myself like, okay, this is like an old Kleenex from last week. I don't know if it smells good or bad, but I am compelled to find out what's my take on that smell. And yeah, it's definitely primal. It's kind of raw, and it's very interesting. How can we know more, learn more about your smell workshops?
Yeah, so right now I'm doing them in person in Berlin, and hopefully soon in other places. I want to continue this work because I find working with the senses fascinating and enriching. And I have a really cool partner, Maximilian Gutberlet, and he is a tantric massage person, and I'm a somatic movement person. And yeah, so it's a good mix. And we both incorporate body work and stuff into it, a little bit of massage, a little bit of smelling. We also did one workshop on the sense of taste and taste exploration. And yeah, and we do obviously the sense of touch. And we're going to work on one on the sense of sight. We might mix it with a sense of touch. But anyways, so yeah, if you're interested in coming to any of my classes or workshops or just learning more about me or having any private sessions with me, you can look at my website at stephanietack.com, or you can find me on my Instagram, which is Shimmering Bodies on Instagram. Yeah.
Loving it. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Yeah, thank you. This has been a wonderful
Yeah,
topic, and I'm sure we'll do another one again soon. Super
yes,
fun. I love
yes,
chatting with you.
yeah, me too. And we have great insights. And I hope the sensualists here like take their curiosity with their sense of smell to another level. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thank you. Yeah, and for anybody that wants to improve their sense of smell, it's like a muscle. The more you practice with it, the stronger it gets. And you can get yourself like a little essential oils kit. Just pick essential oils intuitively and play with them and smell them. And, you can also just play with a sense of smell before you eat, smell the orange before you cut into it, and smell your food before you eat it. Just really giving yourself that sensual pleasure of sniffing stuff before you dive in.
Yes. So now you know, sensualist, sniff stuff before you dive in. So get in touch with Stephanie on her website, stephanietack.com, and also go follow her on Instagram at Shimmering Bodies. Also, if you haven't yet got the free guide to awaken sensuality, go grab it. It's on my website. You know, it's my name, www.candiaraquel.com. See you next time. And until then, remember to take the time to sense your fire so you can share